Welcome to another edition of Here's the Pitch, sponsored by Masses Restaurants in St. Louis, 5 locations, stlmasses.com. If you're driving through St. Louis and you're watching these somewhere else and you're like, hey, let's go to St. Louis for the weekend. I don't know why you do that, but if you do, it's a fun place in the summer, and you can go to the ball game and then maybe hit some pasta, check out their menus. And if you're living in St. Louis, of course you go to Masses and eat that delicious Cajun pasta. Masses Restaurants, stlmasses.com, 5 locations in St. Louis. I love them. Thank you for being my title sponsor. And I'm your YouTube friend, Brad, with another compilation. I appreciate everyone coming over here to check out the Stern interviews. And I like to pick the best parts from them and let you not have to watch the full thing. Maybe you subscribe later and you haven't checked these out. So I try to give you the best moments and some of the more fascinating things that I've heard. And the first one I want to play for you is Brent Hatley. Brent left the show quietly, wasn't talked about, and was gone. So I always thought that was an interesting thing that he did. And pretty much right after he left, I got him on here and we talked about it. And here's that process for him. And then again, when you left there was all this. I mean, I read it and I heard Brent left. He stormed off. Tell us about just leaving, because it was just one day. You're not there anymore. Howard doesn't even really mention it. Tell us a little bit about that week where you actually have to tell them, and you're telling me it was fine. I had an idea, but tell us a little bit about that ending.
Yeah. So as much as I can tell you, here's what I can tell you. I just went to the powers that be and said, this is what I'm thinking. And then, like I said, I can't really get into detail, but there was a lot of back and forth. And then, we worked out an amicable deal where we can all shake hands and walk away friends. But I left. And here's the thing is, lots of people say, oh, he was fired. I wouldn't be able to legally say that I was not fired if I was fired. I'd legally, if you know anything about corporate exit agreements, it would cost me a shit ton of money if I was fired and I went out there and said I wasn't fired. It just would. It was just, I wasn't. I have no ill will towards SiriusXM. They have no ill will towards me. Same with the Stern Show. I just wanted out of New York. I wanted out of the cold. I wanted to do my own thing, and I wanted to move back into the tropics. I wanted to get back here, and I wanted to do my thing. And coronavirus played a small role into it. I'd say 10 to 15%. That pushed me over the edge. I was like, this is getting ready to get real bad in New York. I told my wife, real bad. So once I signed my exit agreement in mid-March, we weren't going to move to the end of March. We moved it up 2.5 weeks and said, we're getting out of New York area right now. So we packed everything up and we hauled ass down here. And luckily enough, I had a friend that could let me stay with him until I got an apartment let me stay with him for about a month and a half. So I got this beautiful apartment for, it's a third of what I was paying in Jersey City. So in Jersey City, I had a 600 square foot apartment. Here I've got over 1,000 square feet, 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, huge, in the sweetest part of St. Pete, and it's the rent's almost nothing. We got used to paying New York prices. I'm like, this really? That's what you want for this apartment? Where do I sign the lease, and how long can I sign for? So I'm just much happier now.
Yeah, my goal is to be a neighbor of yours, at least in the winter, and that's what my wife and I are trying to live vicariously through you as we I don't know if we'll be coming over.
St. Pete, Brad.
Yeah.
St. Pete. That's where you want to be.
we like the West Palm, Jupiter area, kind of. That's where the Cardinals have spring training. Yeah, it's beautiful over there. It's a little more expensive, but we'll figure out a way. I'm amazed. I was looking at that because I think March 11th may have been your last day, and I'm fairly certain March 13th was the day the NBA shut down. So, I mean, that is crazy that it happened like that, because we were me and my wife and my stepson were going to Disney World that next week, and she's like, I don't know if it's, she's like, they're going to close it. And we're like, everyone's like, they're not closing Disney World. It's like, they don't close Florida, Clark, and they, son of a bitch, closed goddamn Disney World. So she knew about it before then. Do you get a chance? You made it sound like you don't even really want to talk to Howard, even when you're trying to do work. So I'm assuming there's been no contact with him since, right? Or has there?
When I left, there was contact with him, and it could not have been nicer. I wish I could get on here and read you the note that he sent me and the note that I sent him. As a human being, he's a sweet human being. I love him and Beth as people. They are great people. And he sent me a beautiful note when I left. And I'm just not gonna bug the guy, obviously. But I do keep in contact with almost everybody there. Just because they're friends. They've been friends of mine since 04, 05. So it's been a lot of years that I've known these people. So, and in the business, it's a small business, and once Howard retires or they trickle out and leave and go do some other stuff, who knows who might work together or who will be on whose shows. So I just try to stay in contact with everybody.
Yeah. So with Bubba, you weren't obviously up at Sirius that much. And then you joined in 2014, so you didn't really get to be around Artie Lange a lot. But I always love to ask anybody who was around Artie Lange, do you have a good Artie Lange story? He did come to Bubba's wedding. It became a huge, great story for both shows, I'm assuming. And he would call in, too, every once in a while. Did you get to know Artie real well?
Yeah, I did, actually. And even when I was leaving Bubba's show, he was one of the people that I talked to on the phone. And he kind of was like, Brent, you're going to be fine. You're going to be great. Everything's awesome. So I love Artie. Artie is one of my favorite people in the world. Like, the guy is a sweetheart, and he's got a huge heart. And I feel for him for any of the pain that he's in. And I've told him personally up at Sirius when I've seen him up there, even with any of the bullshit he was going through with some of the people from the show not liking him, I just pulled him aside and said, hey, man, if you ever need anything, just give me – and I just texted him this the other day. If you ever need anything, support, or even somebody to talk to as a friend, just give me a call, because he was there for me when I needed somebody too. So but the funny story is at Bubba's wedding, Artie had money on the Saints. The Saints were playing the Eagles in the playoffs. Artie had money on the Saints, and we're both looking at our Blackberries at that time to get scores. So I'm like, Artie, there's a sports bar like right across the street. We can go hang right over there. And he's like, okay, let's go. So Artie and I go over there. I get me a big, huge, tall whiskey sour, and I'm sitting there with Artie, who's stressing about money. Like, it's right on the edge of the Saints covering or not. And then I turn around, and there's everybody behind me, Tim Sabian and Gary, and like Scott Farrell. Everybody has come across the street and is with Artie and I partying. So later on that night, after everything's over and Artie lost money, he goes, hey, man, I'm glad because I'm a Saints fan. He's like, I'm glad your team won, even though I lost money. And I was like, hey, we're getting ready to go take some coke and go hang out with strippers. You want to come with us? And he was like, Brent, if I started doing coke, we'd wind up in St. Louis by the end of the night. I was like, okay, understood. I just wanted to be hospitable. So he turned down that, but a group of us did go out with the strippers and the coke that night.
Good for you. You did say you texted him. I know he's coming out of hiding a little bit. If you talked to him or had any conversations with him via text in the last couple months?
No, I just I texted him the other day. I've got 2 numbers for him. I texted him to both of them just to tell him I hope he's doing well, and if he needs anything. I haven't heard back from him, but I just wanted to reach out and let him know, man, I'm here for you if you need me, brother. And I love Artie. He's one of the most talented people that I've ever heard on the radio, and his stand-up is just fantastic. So great fucking guy. Love him.
Yeah, I've met him a couple times. I love that a lot of his punchlines ended with having a coked out in St. Louis, or he had a sandwich thrown at him at this place at the Funny Bone. So he's had some fun here. Probably too much fun than he probably will be wanting to talk about in the future. But yeah, we love Artie. Were you around for Scott the Engineer's exit? I think that was after you, right?
No, that was before me. Scott actually in the last few months sat right next to me in the office with myself and Shuli, and who else was in there? Mike Fox. So huge office. He sat next to me. And Scott's one of the people in life outside the Stern Show or whatever. He's just one of the people in life I feel bad for Scott. And I used to tell Scott this all the time in person, so this is no secret.
Does he want to hear that? Because that's what he's been said. They've been calling him a loser for all these years, and you're like, I feel so bad for you. It's funny, but
I did. I told him, I feel bad for you, brother. And I said, Scott, the only thing I want for you is to have 5 minutes of enjoyment in your entire life, because he really is that down on himself. And I think it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You get down and people tell you you're a loser, and you get into a downward spiral, and it gets in your head. And I tried with him. I told him, like, Scott, I love you. You're a great guy. Like, don't let any of this stuff get you down. And, he's somebody that's run into some bad luck and things like that. But I love Scott. I really, really do. I think he's a great guy.
What was that day like when he's not sitting there the next day? I mean, that just seemed like the weirdest one of all time.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just weird to me because I had no idea what happened. I hadn't even heard. I was like, what's going on? They're like, you didn't hear? I was, no. So it was just weird. It was weird, and it just made me incredibly sad because I love Scott, and he'd been with the show for so long, and I just think that he should have been able to like retire or whatever he wanted to do in his time, because he really did put his heart into the show for a lot of years.
Well, I hope one day he wants to talk here, because I think he would be fun to talk to and hear his story. But I'm not sure he's not sure he's going to be telling it soon. So we're wrapping up a little bit. Again, I appreciate your time. Oh, I guess I have to ask, because it's out, the jackhammer. That wasn't a big thing, right? That had nothing to do with you leaving the Stern Show. And everybody reads it, they go,
"Oh, no." Here's the deal. My wife and I are swingers. That's what goes on in the swinging community. Like, this kind of stuff goes on all the time. Like, this past weekend, we were down in Fort Myers with a huge group of people at a huge like Halloween orgy. Like, we are swingers. That's what goes on. None of that stuff upsets me. Like, it really doesn't. Like, he's actually a pretty friendly guy. I went out to LA. I had a couple of chicks, and my wife was friendly with one of the chicks that I was with out in LA. That's what goes on in swinging. We're easygoing. That's just like something that I'm into isn't going to upset me. That's, you know what I'm saying? The people that say that are projecting their feelings onto me. That's not my feelings. My wife will tell you, I'm like not a jealous person at all. In fact, all these situations that we get into really are a turn on for me. It's not me getting upset. So the jackhammer had nothing to do with us leaving. Nothing whatsoever. You know, he's a nice enough guy, but swinging lifestyle, you meet, it's a dime a dozen, man. You meet lots of people. So, but that's what we are. That's what we do.
My thanks to Brent, and it was an interesting conversation, and hope he's doing well, and I assume he is, and we'll hopefully catch up with him once again. Next interview that you may have seen, this was one I was really excited to do. I tracked Tom Chiosano down, and I was working hard to find him, and went through many different avenues. And Tom came on and was great, and I got to say he was great to my mother. He gave her a call. My mom had cancer, and you know, Tom obviously had cancer back in the 90s, and he's a very big proponent of Sloan Kettering, and he does a great thing there. But just hearing from Tom and talking about his days with the show, and did he have a chance to go with the show to Sirius? We covered a lot of that. So here's just a little bit from my conversation with Tom. I really enjoyed this. The fact that you know, when you'd come in, it clearly he was angry, but everyone always says, "Oh, he's different off the air." But it does become a great bit for the radio that, oh, here comes Tom. There was theme songs. Here comes Tom. Tom, it's time to stop having fun. And all these songs. So it became a bit, and he created a character for you. And so maybe that's what it was. I mean, as bad as we all think it was for you and him having to deal with you, the fact that it was a bit just made it good radio, and that's all that really mattered to him.
Yeah, and that's all that really mattered to me. End of the day, that's all that really mattered to me. And I knew if we were arguing, it probably wasn't about. It may have been about things that had related to, you know, a body part or a body function or whatever, you know. But it wasn't dealing directly with it, and you know, and those were the things where the people who, when they started to super focus on him, you know, and the religious right, you know, was going out of their way to try and drive him off the air. Those are the things that they were focused on. And if we were arguing about whether 50 Cent, you know, or I should say properly, whether 50 Cent could say bitch 100 times, you know, in 5 minutes, or, you know, or whatever the other things would be, that at least it wasn't about those things that, you know, that we were being super focused on by people on the religious right.
What did you think of that at the point of where you're now running the dump button? I mean, you're the executive of the show, and you should be dealing with other stuff, but you really just sat there and had to listen, right? I mean, did you ever think?
Yeah, oh yeah. No, I sat there for 6+ years listening to every word, and editing it when, you know, unfortunately when I thought I needed to.
How hard was that? How hard was it to know that this is going to create some drama later, that he knows it?
I didn't even think about it. I just did what I had to do.
Okay.
Honestly, it was regrettable. I didn't want it, you know, but I knew I had to do it. And the idea was I was going to do it for a very brief period of time until we found a person better suited to do it. But we only did after I got sick. When I got sick in 98, obviously I wasn't coming in, and I was out of work for 14 weeks. My life was on the line. So editing the show was no longer a priority. I was in a hospital, as sick as I possibly could be. And so we found somebody. And then when I came back to work, which I did 14, whatever it was, weeks later, that person stayed on that job. And, and I'd go down and I'd aid and abet him if I needed to. And then, so I stopped doing it. What got me out of being the show's editor, stage 4 cancer.
So maybe a light at the end of the tunnel.
Else, but that was what did it.
You say light at the end of the tunnel, maybe there. Poor Andre, poor Dead Air Dave, though. Those guys just got.
Yep.
Did they? Are they? How are they doing? I guess I'll ask you. The PSTSD.
Dave, I think Dead Air is still on the air somewhere in New York. And Andre, I've kind of lost touch. When I left, I left. I was had a nice long run. I was 60 years old about when I left, and I missed some of the people. I missed the action when I left. I liked it. I really did. And I enjoyed my job, and I especially enjoyed those 20 years. There's nothing better than those 20 years. But when I left, I was done. Do I listen to radio? Yep. Do I think about it sometimes as a professional? I'd like to think I was a professional, so I would think about it that way. And I have contact with some of the people who I worked with and who worked for me. But for the most part, I was done. I was ready to move on to whatever was next. And that, and fortunately for me, that became volunteering at Sloan Kettering and getting involved in trying to help other cancer patients when I was so lucky to be the survivor that I am.
Yeah, and we're going to get to that again at the end here, but I have a few people I want to ask you about. So, and these are key members, like Jackie. You had to deal with him every year. What was it like knowing in 2001 that he's saying no? I mean, tell me about that negotiation, because Jackie's been on here a few times, and he even relays that, I didn't want to do it anymore, but I did call back twice to see if I could get back in there. What were your thoughts when he finally decided not to stay? You and Howard had to. Just tell me about that. It's crazy because he called them the Beatles, and he was the fourth member of the Beatles.
Right.
But it was hard. I felt like when I listened, because he was needed there, and you did replace him. But that little span of time there in 2001, how hard was it?
Well, it was a regrettable decision on his part. I liked Jackie and still, think kindly of Jackie. I have no idea how Jackie thinks of me. I haven't talked to him. I was the one handling that negotiation. And, as I had in the past, and he had, we had tough negotiations prior to that. If I remember correctly, where he had walked for a little bit, and and Howard always wanted him back. But in this one in particular, I had made sure that, Howard and I had conversations about it. He knew exactly what I was doing. I had talked to my boss, who was Mel, and said, this is, and made sure that I had all the money in line, and, had approvals for the money that I was offering him and all those kinds of things. So, we had a final meeting. I put what was a very generous offer, what I believe was a very generous offer to Jackie on the table, guaranteed employment. I won't go into the specifics of it. But it was it should have been a life changer, for him, given where he was and had been. And I actually remember some of my words in the meeting. I looked at him and said, Jackie, I should be the guy trying to, to downplay you, to not take this offer, because it's a lot, I'm putting a lot on the table. But, Jackie had encouraged me when I came back from cancer to kind of go on, when we started going on the road trips to Vegas, to make sure that I came, and, said, why wouldn't you take it? Why not come? And, So I appreciated that, and I appreciated, the sense that I had that Jackie's caring about me at that point. And I tried to express that to him in this final meeting that we had. I even said, I'm trying to remember the guy's name from MASH, who left. And I used him as an analogy. The old TV show MASH, one of the main characters, left the show. And I said, don't be that guy. Stevenson, I think, was his last name.
Yeah, it was Hawkeye and Jamie Farr, the only two people, like Radar, the two people.
Yeah, but it was I think it was the first colonel, who was the boss of the MASH unit. I said, don't be that guy. This is a serious offer. It's a lot of money, and we'd like you to stay. Obviously, I wouldn't put this on the table if we don't want you to stay. And he decided at that point that it wasn't good enough for him, and everybody, as I said, Howard knew, and the other principals that needed to know knew, and when he tried to come back after rejecting the proposal, it was decided. It wasn't my end of the day decision, but it was decided that nope, time to move on. And I've always felt bad about that. If somehow this is reaching you, Jackie, I hope you understand that. I really did. I really did want you to take that. I really did want you to be part of it. But it was decided, it was enough, because what was going to happen the next time we went around.
I might work.
I wish I'd been able to encourage him with found the right words to make that offer stick with him to where he would have taken it.
I might work to get you two together. Maybe here on a nice Zoom call at the end of the year we can. Couple more. So Artie Lange comes in and changes the dynamic of the show, but for the better. I always say there's two great eras. For me, it's Jackie, then the Artie era. Artie, Howard leaves his microphone on. He didn't really it didn't seem like any issues with you during the show at K-Rock. It seemed like he was pretty much clean and feeling good, even though maybe he wasn't clean, but he was doing his job coming in. But
unfortunately, I don't think, I think in retrospect, he wasn't, obviously. But in terms of dealing with him, he was I tried to communicate with Artie. I liked Artie a lot. Tried to communicate with Artie, in some of his troubled times and failed, but Artie was a great guy. Or is a great guy, The only thing I don't like about Artie is a big Yankee fan. I'm a Met fan. But other than that, I can't think of anything we really disagreed on. He was funny. He was quick. He was a big fan. When he first came on, it was at one level. Then after he proved himself a success there, his agent and I had a fairly easy negotiation over, on moving him up. But I always remember being in Vegas one year for those shows, and Artie was so smashed while we're doing these shows that I was actually sitting, hiding on the side of the stage, with my fingers through the back of his belt loop, so that he was sitting next to Fred, who had the control board. Howard obviously always and still runs his own board, I think. And that every time Artie tried to get up, I would pull on his belt loop to not let him get up, so he couldn't tip over and probably fall into into Fred's stuff. But yeah, Artie was great on the show. He added a different dynamic. Obviously, he wasn't writing like Jackie was writing, but he was adding because he was a very spontaneous, funny guy who had a lot of great stories that just added to the show.
Yeah, and you weren't there, and it was a different time. But how do you think you would have handled how his ending happened?
I don't know. I can't second guess anybody on that. It was, we are who we are. We do what we do to ourselves, and at the end of the day, we have to be responsible for that, and to ourselves. So I'm sure the guys at the management team at Sirius, I'm sure they did everything they could to keep that situation viable.
And no contact with him lately? I know he's kind of coming back out of...
No. I mean, I'd be happy to, but I tried, and maybe he doesn't even know that I tried. I don't know. And maybe this message gets to him, and we could argue about who's better, the Mets or the Yankees. Now that we've got a viable owner of the Mets in New York, we're excited.
Yeah, here's another. So we'll get that one. See, Tom, it's gonna be Brad, Tom, and guest as our new podcast. Well, welcome, congratulations, Tom. Couple more minutes. So when Howard mentions that he's going to Sirius, it's on the air. Tell me about that day and just not knowing, because I think what I remember, Robin didn't even know. I mean, he kept this completely.
No. I mean, as far as I knew, I certainly didn't know. Nobody knew, and and it was a panic moment. Not a panic moment. Not a panic moment, but it certainly was a stress moment. And then that became. That actually, in some ways, became. Almost, it was kind of more difficult to deal with than just being the editor of the show. Because now I wasn't the editor of the show anymore. There was Dead Air Dave was on the button at that point because Andre had left, and but it created a whole new, what can he do? What can he say? He figured it out. He figured out how to, how to make it work. And I think we figured out how to, and I say we, I figured out how to kind of hold it together for whatever that period. But, how could he not go?
Could you have gone and would you?
How could he have not left?
Yeah, but could you have gone? Did you ever think about going? Was that ever a thought in your mind to continue on and maybe follow him there? Is that something you could have done?
I don't know. You'd have to. I don't know. Did I think about it? I listen. I love the show. I literally, I truly, I love Howard. There are a few people, that I respect more than him. I mean, family, Mel Karmazin and he, in terms of professionalism, I can't think of any two more professional people that, that people should aspire to try and be like. Professional, hardworking, hopefully I was some of that. And I didn't, I'm not going to, could I, would I don't know. Didn't go there. I was quite happy to leave when I left CBS. Maybe I would have been smarter to try and find another job at that point. I decided not to. And,
well, it just felt like you guys were intertwined together, that you might, I felt like
20 years, I don't know if he makes 20 years, I'll be jealous because I wanted to be the only manager who worked with him for that length of time. But the good news is that he's had different people. Although I guess there's the one guy whose name is going to escape me at the moment, has been there the entire time and was influential in bringing Howard over. And but when it came to radio manager, I was hoping that I was going to be able to say, well, I worked with him for 20 and nobody did it longer. And I think he's getting ready to. He's coming at the end of 15 now on Sirius, and I'm waiting, like I think everybody else is waiting to hear the new announcement, unless it's been made and I just missed it. And to see if he continues. If he does, I hope it's for 3 more years and not for 5. So I can still say I did it for 20.
Yeah, and our conversation we had before this, just on the phone, you don't have any bitterness at all. I mean, you guys, it's really nice to hear. How much contact do you have with Howard? I mean, you've talked to him. You talk about him glowingly, and you said that you guys still kind of have. How often do you get a chance to maybe email him, text him, or any of that stuff?
I'm a semi-regular. I try not to bug him. When I got out of I was getting out of the car on Saturday morning. And I had listened to the Sunday morning. Now I forget. So long ago, it was 24 or 48 hours ago. I forget whether it was Saturday or Sunday. The days run together. I sent him a little email. So I just listened to that interview. It was great. Thank you for making my write up. very pleasant and going, and full of listening to two giants at what they do. Do it. And so, as I said, I'm a fan. I consider him a friend. I think he considers me the same, but I can't answer for that part. I can only answer for my part.
Do you have any favorite moments that come up when people ask you, what's your favorite moments of being on the show? Of course, beating up your suit, losing in golf to Stuttering John.
By the way, that's certainly not one of my favorite moments. Breaking my hand, punching a suit after a frustrating night of cards and then having to play it on the air. It was fine. And I wasn't, I didn't think about it. I didn't even intend to tell him that I had done it. The person I felt worse for was my poor wife, who came in after I had punched the door, and she, or the suit, and then the door, and saw me and saw that, and just said, "Not now, honey." My long-suffering wife that I put her through that. Listen.
I mean, is there like a moment on the show where you're like, well, that was fun?
For the most part, it's, it was 20 years of a wonderful time, stressful at times, being professionally very active. Being part of that and being associated with the show got me out of some speeding tickets. He created, like he does for everybody, or a lot of people, he made me a minor personality and, in a bigger world. And that was fun, and it still happens. I still, why would you want to talk to me 20 years later? Because some of that still resonates, and I like that, as I said, I'm a big enough ham, that, I didn't shy away from that, when I was doing it professionally. There's some benefits to it, and still, and there's people who still say, "Are you?" And I go, "Yeah, yeah, that's me." And I don't hide from it. I'm proud of it.
Well, you're handsome at 74. I got to say, you still got it.
73. Don't age me prematurely, okay?
My mom's 74. My thanks to Tom Chiosano, good man, and appreciate him coming on. You can see that full interview in my playlist. Again, subscribe. There's more new interviews coming, and I promise you're going to love them. So hopefully you're subscribed and you get those notifications because I am still working on this. But of course, I'm working with trying to get more athletes and more comedians. Anybody who's got a pitch, come on over here to Here's the Pitch on ST Weekly, the channel that you're watching right now. Make sure you subscribe so you get notified when new episodes arise. Next, I want to talk about my interview with Joe Buck. Joe Buck has always been good to me. He was a young guy when he got into business, and I was even a younger guy, but he's always been really good to me. He's done a ton of interviews in all the different platforms that I've been on with him. I even worked with him at Fox Sports for some time. So we worked together a little bit, kind of not in the same building, but we worked together. But I was always interested in his love of Howard Stern. So if you like Joe Buck, or if you don't, you might enjoy this. And again, you can see this whole interview in my playlist. But here's Joe Buck talking about his time with Artie Lange on his show on HBO. Pretty much wrecked his HBO, and just his admiration of Howard Stern. Well, I am a huge Stern fan. You went on there in January of 2017. I remember this day because I think I saw it on Twitter, and so I don't have Sirius. I'm like, I'm going to have to activate. I have to hear this. I texted you after it, and I remember I actually looked to see today. You're like, that was a thrill. Tell me just how did that? I know it was during the book tour, but just tell me everything. How did you get booked onto Howard and that experience? Because you seemed pretty geeked up to be on there as well.
I was doing the Super Bowl at the end of that week. I think that was Monday. And that following Sunday, I was going to do the Super Bowl, and I was more worried and excited about going on Stern than I was to do the Super Bowl, at least the worried part. Definitely excited about doing the Super Bowl. Way more worried about what Howard was going to ask me because he's not a sports fan, and he's the first guy to tell you that. So had I not written the book where I talk about losing my voice because of getting hair plug surgery or going through divorce or, kind of the inner workings of what a broadcast is about, just different things, my family history, whatever, that I think opened me up to potentially being a guest, I'm not going to go on there. He's not interested in interviewing me to talk about this week's All-Star game. That's just not on his radar. So I have a publicist, Louis K. Covert Creative, I think is the name of it. I hired them at one point when I was putting the book out. And then, so they start, lining up interviews, and they have a great relationship with Gary dell'Abate. He pitched me. Somehow they said yes. And then I've done it a second time since then, and had my wife come on. So it's just kind of hard to believe that I got a chance to do it. And it was great. I think I learned a lot when I sat there, because I noticed how locked into me and my answers he was. Like I had done other interviews. I did the Tonight Show when Jay Leno was hosting, and another not huge sports guy, but he was looking past me the entire time, looking for cues from the producer or whatever. And it's unnerving. It's like, am I boring you, or how am I going to get your attention back? And Howard was just locked in, and such a friendly face, like with a smile that just makes you want to talk. And I get it. I get why people go on. If you go on Howard Stern and you're not ready to kind of bear all, good luck, because he will get it out of you. So you might as well just have fun with it and just come with it, because he's going to eventually get there anyway. And it was a blast, and he was great, and he could not have been nicer. And it's one of the biggest thrills of my career.
I think your best call is your call of JD eating breakfast.
Yeah, that was the first thing that they had me do too, because I got in there early. They're like, "Hey, would you mind doing play-by-play of JD eating his breakfast?" And I was like, "Oh my God, really? Okay." So they gave me, a few stats, like how many grams of fat the sandwich was that he was eating, and so there I am. It's like surreal. Here I am looking at him through a glass door and doing the play-by-play. They did such a good job of editing that thing, because it was not that funny when I did it, but they put it together in a way that made it a lot more entertaining than it otherwise would have been. So, and then I did a phony phone call, which, I love listening to those. And all they did was had me record lines. I was never on the phone with, who they ended up matching it up with. And they're just firing off little sound bites of me talking. And I was in awe when I listened to it. So got it. I mean, you can tell that there's a bit of a disconnect, but it sounds like I'm giving the guy trouble on the other end of the phone line. And I was never on with anybody. I'm just recording in a studio these random lines that they gave.
And that's what they do for a living up there. It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
You're a fan, right? I mean, you listen to him for.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I listen now. I listen now for the interviews more so. Like I will check out every once in a while when it goes down a rabbit hole. Kind of some of the stuff they do. Most of it makes me laugh, but when he gets a long, an hour plus with. You take his, I think, in recent times, like him with Vedder or him with Conan or him with, and even people that I didn't think I would love listening to, like Arsenio Hall or different people. And you go, why was I not interested in listening to this beforehand? God, I'm glad I did. And wasn't that enjoyable? So I'm a huge fan of his interviews, and the other stuff's good, but the interviews are great.
Even if he rips you, though, because I remember back early, I think the Randy Moss call they played over and over. He's like, "Oh, listen to this guy up there. What's this disgusting act stuff?" So
well, that, and then Artie when he came on the HBO show.
Oh, I want to ask you about that. Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, that was all going on, and I was listening to that. That was another time when you're like, "Oh my God, I'm sitting here in my car, just dropped my kids off at school, and I'm listening to Howard Stern and Artie Lange rehash an interview that I had done whenever it was. I don't think it was the night before, but maybe 2 nights before. So, man, it was crazy." But it was, I guess, in the end, all that stuff's great.
For me, and I listened to that day because I was shocked at what happened that night watching on HBO. But Howard, I felt like was on your side, because I think
He was like, why would you do that, Art? Why would you go in there and do that? And little did we know. I mean, I wrote the foreword to his second book, Artie's second book, and he details a lot of that in there. Or I don't know, maybe it was in the first book. Either way, reading it and his little conversation he had with Rudd during a break that happened, some of the stuff Rudd said, Rudd was kind of egging him on to kind of do more. And we now know that he was snorting Vicodin and drinking Jack before he went out there. Not exactly information that I had handy at the time. When I went in, I did go into his dressing room beforehand. I was excited to meet him because I was a huge fan of the show. I was the one that was like, we got to get Artie Lange. If we can get him. HBO got him. And I was like, Artie, rip me. When you get out there, just shred me. I don't care. And I didn't know it would go to that degree. But I was never upset by it. I was upset by the reaction, but I wasn't like out there about to cry. I mean, I kind of, and it got frustrating and I started to lose my patience, but I was trying to fire back. But the whole time you have a voice in your head going, do you really want to get into a battle right now with Artie Lange? Because I'm going to have to say stuff that's going to just blow my whole persona here and just maybe flush my career. So I just had to kind of sit there and take it. And, you know, again, you live and learn. I probably would handle it better now. Maybe not. I don't know what else I could have done. So
I was going to say, what would you do? How would you do anything? I don't even know. I can't even.
I don't know.
I can't even.
I'm not going to get into a battle of wits with somebody that's kind of, I mean, that's what he's known for. And it would be like me then trying to heckle him. And it just, I can only say this, and this is not revisionist history. And again, I've told this before, and I think Artie would probably at this point in his life agree with this. But after about the second rip on me or the show or whatever it was, the room went from really laughing to kind of like, this is a little bit too much. And he kind of, I don't think he had a great gauge that night of if it was too much or not. And so it was probably a little bit too much. But again, HBO kind of came out and freaked out about it. I never really cared. And I called him, I don't know, the next day, later that day after I'd listened to Howard and Artie and everybody rehash all that. And I said, hey, I left him a message. I said, it's Joe. I just want to thank you for coming on. I'm not mad at you. I told you to rip me. It's all good. I'm thankful that you even bothered to come down to the studio and do it. So no hard feelings. He called me right back and he's like, anything I can do for you? You know, I'm a comic. It probably went too far, whatever. And we became friends. And, you know, he was a part of the second show, which I had to demand to have him in the second show, or I said, I'm not going to do the second show. And I had to get into kind of a little bit of a battle on that because I had booked him. I'd written something for him at the beginning to do like a cold opening joke. And then the head of HBO, Richard Plepler, came in and said, no, he's not coming on the second show. It's done and over with. And I was like, well, not to me. I haven't been on in 3 months and I'm not going to go out there and act like that didn't happen. This is my life. So I'm either going to be able to talk about it and laugh at myself and laugh about it, or I'm not going to do it. I already have a job. And I won that little battle. And, you know, when that piece of tape came on and he's a part of that opening and the crowd, the studio audience, you know, roared with laughter, I was like, I did the right thing and it was funny and it was well done. So that was another lesson that you learn. I mean, that's the only way I can look at this stuff.
I think I saw you say too, it's like, well, if Conan had 3 shows and then they canceled them, how do you you didn't even have a chance to really get into a groove. And then
we had no idea what we really wanted the show to be. So the show took over for a slot that Costas had, but it was an entirely different tone. Like I didn't want to do what Bob was doing. That's what he does. So let's try and do something different, lighten it up, have comedians on at the end. It is HBO at 10 o'clock at night or 11 o'clock at night in the East. So you should be able to take advantage of that, of having kind of no rules. And I just I didn't understand why that wasn't a positive. Like working at Fox and for David Hill for all those years, David would have been the guy to come out and go, And that's why the show's going to be exciting. You never know what's going to happen. It's live on HBO. Tune in 3 months and let's see what happens in show 2. But that was a hard thing. So we never really got into a groove of knowing kind of where to step, where not to step, what the tone should be, what the tone shouldn't be, what the format should be, what it shouldn't be. And that was the hard part because it was every 3 months or whatever it was, 4 shows a year. And it was live. Had it been on tape, that segment would have never aired, probably, with the way they reacted to it. So I'm glad it was live, and I'm glad we pulled it off. And, I wish it had gone on longer, but that's just kind of the way it went.
And when Artie goes, it was funny. Listen to the crowd; they're guffawing. And no, they're not. I mean, they're
not by the end of it. And it was like, okay, we're gonna keep going. And it was like, all right, all hell's broken loose. Oh, good, we're out of time. That's the end of the show. And I just remember getting off. I couldn't even get off the stage. And the writers are coming up to me, asking me questions about it. It was just a weird situation for my first time at HBO. But again, I mean, you can only, it's easy after the fact to go, I wish I had done this. I wish I had done that. You can only accept what you do in the moment and live with it. And I don't know that I would really do much different if it happened tonight. I mean, you just got to roll with it and hope that the place you work for backs you up.
Any contact with Artie of late? Everyone I talk to, they don't know where he is. He's been AWOL.
Yeah, I reached out through that same publicist, oddly enough, that got me on Stern. I said, I want to book Artie on my podcast. I mean, we've done a bunch of interviews together since then. He interviewed me. One of the best interviews I feel like I've ever given was hosted by him on a DirecTV thing around a Super Bowl in New Orleans, like whenever that was, 2012 or 13. And, I mean, it was really great. It was good to catch up. So I reached out, and the publicist went through some people. Dave Attell, a comedian, is friends with him. And I think he's just maybe finally kind of tucked himself away to try to get as healthy as he can, and then just laying low. So I don't know that he would do it. Maybe he would do it for me. But more than that, I just want to make sure he's kind of still doing okay. And he's battling a lot of demons. He's brilliantly funny, unbelievable memory, huge sports fan. He's still everything that's why I wanted him on that show.
A couple quick hits. What's going on behind you? I see an Emmy. I see some pictures. Do you mind us just kind of taking a look at what's going on back there? What do you got? Anything fun to tell us?
I've got the World Series trophy that was my gift from my dad for Christmas in 1982, a couple months after the Cardinals won the World Series. So that's what that's from. It's kind of a miniature version, but legit. I mean, it's not plastic. It's heavy. If there's gold involved, there's gold plated something. And then an Emmy, and then I think a lot of what else is back there? My dad's scorecard from McGwire year, I believe, when in 98, one of those home runs. And then just a lot of pictures of my dad and me, pictures of my mom's back there somewhere. Howard Stern is over here.
So that's what I thought. I didn't want to say anything. I was like, is that Howard over there? Why is he over there?
Howard's over there. My kids are somewhere. They should be way more prominent than they actually are.
Why is Howard over there? I'm curious.
I don't know. It's just different. And if I go on, like I sat in this seat for an appearance on the Ellen show, and for her to see Stern back there, I don't know. He sent me that. It's an autographed picture of him. I've had 1,000 autographed pictures from people, none of which are displayed anywhere, and most of which have been lost. But that one I put up, and I don't know. It's kind of. It would be a good show to kind of dissect what's behind everybody and kind of go through the reasons why, certain friends, a specific golf trip, a moment, with my wife on a, important vacation, or my mom is back there from Broadway. That was like her headshot back in the 60s. I feel like everybody kind of had to make their best background, this past year. And this is kind of a mess behind me, but it's not like the Da Vinci Code, but there are things back there that I think are important to me. And if you really took a minute to go through all that, you know, I don't want to bore your audience because they can't see it.
My thanks to Joe and everybody who's been part of this show. And you can again see that full interview, and make sure you subscribe as you'll see these interviews as they come out. I'm planning big things, more comedians, more athletes, and more folks associated with the Stern Show. So I want you to subscribe. Make sure you subscribe and become a member of the ST Weekly channel, and tell your friends and comment. I'm trying to just dig through all the comments. I love talking to the viewers out there. So you can say bad things, good things. I don't care. But if you have any questions for me, just throw them in the comments. I'm always up for giving you commenting back. And if you have any thoughts on who you'd like me to get, I love to see those names. Croy is one that just came to mind, and I'm like, I gotta find Croy. So if anybody knows where Croy is, let's try to get Croy. I think that would be fun. Or the singing psychic. That's gonna do it for today's show. I appreciate you watching. I thank my sponsor, Masses Restaurants, 5 locations in St. Louis, stlmasses.com. Make sure you check them out if you're in St. Louis, and if you're passing through town, go there, get some pasta, get some pizza, get the Big Al's Pizza. It's named after my father. They loved my dad over there. And we'll see you next time.